In today's conversation, I speak with Anna Lancaster, who is a hypnotherapist, and we talk about all the different effects that working on our subconscious mind can have in our daily lives, whether it is working through success blocks, where we subconsciously hold ourselves back from getting that thing that we know we really want, and we're doing everything that we can to move towards, but for some reason, we're just not getting there. Right the way through to healing ourselves from injury. In Anna's case, and how she got into hypnotherapy in the first place, it was through a traumatic spinal injury. It's a wonderful conversation today with so many takeaways, and I know you're going to enjoy it. So, Anna, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so looking forward to our conversation because this whole idea of understanding why we have certain blockages that we don't even know about that are stopping us from propelling more purposefully through life, I think is utterly fascinating. So we'll talk about this idea of hypnotherapy and the different types of people that you work with. But before we even begin, I'm really curious to understand your story and how you got to where you are right now.
Oh gosh, well, I'll make the very long story a bit short. But I actually started in marketing years ago. I started in marketing, and I loved the whole ethos behind it, and like looking into why people bought things. And often it was always linked to an emotion, the like psychology of buying. Consumers tend to buy something not necessarily because it's the best, but because of how it makes it feel. If they feel like they're an inspirational person, if they have it, or if they feel like they're a certain type of person. And it's all about feeling. And I kind of got into that from that stage. But then about 10 years ago, I had a spinal leak, and it was pretty bad. And it was, I don't know if anyone is familiar with it, but it's when spinal fluid leaks from your lower back or part of the spine. And it's like having an elephant on your head. So when you're lying down, you're fine. When you're sat up, it kind of drains, and it's incredibly painful. And I had three operations, which didn't do an awful lot. And I'd got to a point of feeling quite despairing, to be honest. And my mum gave me a couple of books, which were very entry level books into it. It's like The Secret and one by Joe Dispenza. And it was all about the power of the mind and the placebo effect. So I started to integrate some of those techniques and use them. And then I had a fourth operation. And after that, um, it was fixed. And obviously, I had the operation as well, but the only thing that I'd really done that was different was these techniques and that. And I started to realize the power of the mind. And from then, I just became a little bit obsessed with it, and the mindset, and how every thought has an impact on the body from a chemical reaction. And I was just fascinated. And then we kind of got towards nearly COVID, and I'd been studying it for so long, and everything changed. Like, people weren't going to the theatre, which was predominantly my area, and they weren't buying shoes, which was another one of my clients. And I had a property company as well, which was kind of luxury Airbnb, and people weren't going on holiday. So I was like, what am I going to use this time to do? So I qualified in hypnotherapy specifically, and a specific type called RTT, which is rapid transformational therapy, devised by a wonderful woman called Marissa Peer. The results from that are phenomenal because it's like hypnotherapy on speed. It's very rapid results. But I qualified, and I was kind of like, this is only going to work because there are so many therapists, hypnotherapists out there. It's only going to work for me if I'm really good, and not just like, really good. I have to be great. So I qualified, and then I asked a few of my higher profile friends, if I'm good, can I test it out on you? And if I'm good, then write me a testimonial and tell everybody. If I'm not, I'll head back to marketing when COVID clears. And thankfully, I was good. I was really good. And the referrals came in, and I just built and built and built from there. And yeah, it's been phenomenal. The results I get, I'm always outstanding, but surprised by them, but not surprised because it works. And yes, I work predominantly on referral, and I've been developing my skills since. So I do a lot of lecturing about the mind. I do at Oxford University. I help their students at a grassroots level because I think obviously a lot of the issues we have now are developed from when we're younger. So I think it's vital to look into that. So yeah, keep very busy, but I love doing it.
Do you know, and I've said this many times before, so anyone who is a regular with watching these will know I genuinely mean it. I really love when someone organically, through their own journey, comes to a place where actually they find what they're passionate about and what they're good at through their own learned experience, because or through your own lived experience rather, because you can learn as much as you like, but if you haven't lived it and felt it, then you actually can't pass it on with that same power. If it's just something that you've read in a book or gone on a training course, you need to feel in yourself exactly the in your instance, it's the healing power of what it is that you are going through with your clients. So thank you for sharing that. That's fascinating. We've known each other for a little while, and I didn't know that was your backstory.
Oh,
Um, Oh, I mean, I know that you have broken things before, and you've done that even in my cup. You broke your toe, and you break your neck trying to do a cartwheel or a handstand?
handstand. So yes, last year was my annus horribilis with my body.
It was, yeah.
I did that sounds awful. I did a handstand against the wall, and I thought I was stronger than I was. I was playing with my friend's daughter, and my hands went, and I just cracked my neck on the floor, and I was like, it was painful, very painful, but I just kind of got up and continued, and then I flew the next day because I had a flight, and I was like, how bad is this? Got on the flight and got into Munich, and as soon as I arrived, I was like, something quite wrong, and I went to the hospital, and they were like, "Don't move your neck." And yeah, I was in a neck brace for 6 weeks, and again, I used the same sort of healing powers. I was should have been in it for 6 weeks. I was kind of cleared by 4, and healed very quickly. But it's that same sort of techniques. I do a lot of visualization. I can't kind of
Mhm.
tell the benefits of visualization because you are kind of instructing your mind what to
Mm.
do. And yeah,
Talk me through that, because we're laughing about the fact, you oh, you broke your neck while doing a handstand. That's pretty horrific. But this I have heard of instances like this before, where someone has had a terrible injury, and yes, clearly they're going through the normal medical routes, but they're also working doing some deep seated work on themselves, normally through the power of visualization. So if again, if someone is watching this and they're interested in, yes, taking what the doctors are doing, but working on themselves by themselves, talk us through the process.
absolutely. I mean, there's so many studies and cases, especially like there's some linked with cancer where they'll get them to visualize with different things like Pac-Man eating away at the cancer, or they'll get them to visualize in different ways, it working, and that being the result. And they've shown that it does help, it does work when you're visualizing. And I even do certain visualizations where I'll get my clients to go into a relaxed scenario, and the parts of the body which are the unhealed ones, visualizing them healing. And the thing is, when you start to visualize things and when you start to have thoughts in your head, what happens when you have those thoughts? Like if you're thinking of something positive, your body rushes with positive chemicals, serotonin and dopamine, and the positive chemicals. The same way as when you're having negative thoughts, and that it floods with cortisol and adrenaline and those negative ones which are harmful to the body. So when you're flooding your body with healing chemicals, what's it going to do on a natural basis, even if you're just looking into that? But there are so many studies also about how the mind on the body. I think there's one in America I heard recently where they had bodybuilders, and they had these two sets of bodybuilders, and they made one set kind of do the exercises, and worked on a certain muscle in the body, and they tested them after a month, and it had increased by 30% or something like that. And they did the same thing with people just visualizing, not even doing it, but visualizing them using that same muscle, and it increased by 13%. And I'm not saying don't go to the gym or anything like that, but it does show the power of the mind and the power of the mind on healing. And even like the placebo effect, that the tests when they give someone a sugar pill to test against any drug. And the results of that are phenomenal. They can be up to, I think it's like 60% as effective as taking a medication that actually works. And so there is so much on the mind being able to heal when you actually start to put it into action. I
Mm.
really visualize it. And I imagine in the bodybuilders one, they were visualizing how the muscle would move, what they would do in that time, um, to get it to do that. But I mean, I still find it fascinating. But I know that when I did it myself, I was very much, especially with a broken neck, visualizing it tendon by tendon coming back together, the bone. I was just like visualizing it as I would expect it to be, and in a
Mm.
relaxed state. And obviously, you know, when you go into a meditative state or a hypnotic state, you do get flushed with those positive chemicals.
Mm. So, do you know it? And it's logical. It makes sense, even from a biology point of view. Even if you think, "Oh, hang on, this is a little bit woo woo for me," but think about it from a biological point of
Yeah.
view and a medical point of view. You're absolutely right. If you're in a stressed state and your body is flooded with adrenaline and cortisol, your body cannot heal because it's almost attacking itself. It's pumped. It's ready for action. It's in its fight and flight mode. But if you are in a soothed state and you are allowing feelings of almost love and warmth and gratitude and healing towards whatever it is, even if it's a broken heart, you are, it stands to reason that you are going to heal. And I know that for me, even in myself, when I've had, challenging times in my life, I try to think on a very basic level. I think of something that I love. And
Yeah.
it can be my husband, it can be my dogs, depending on the day. It might be my kids, or it could be actually really far away from being my kids. Depends on the day. Anyone who's a parent will understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I imagine most of the time it's a dog. But you just imagine them and
Mm.
you let that feeling of just love rush through your body, and you can actually feel the
Yeah.
chemical change that happens. And I find that instantly that takes me down from a place of getting a bit stressed about this. And when I'm doing my coaching, which is obviously media coaching, which is different, and people are, one of the biggest problems that people have is, I get so nervous and I'm so worried whether I'm going to be on a stage or when I'm going to whatever, or be interviewed by someone that I'm really nervous about. And the advice I give them is, imagine you really like them. Just
Yeah.
imagine you love them. If you like, you might have never met them before in your life. You're never going to see them again in 10 minutes time.
Very
Just
true.
imagine there's something about them. You love them. And I'm
Yeah.
not in a creepy, weird way, but just as in, there's something about them that you love. And I said, and your body will rush and fill with endorphins, and you'll feel this warmth of affection towards them. One that calms you down. Your body goes, it's all good. We don't have to stand by. This person's okay. But also, they will feel more receptive towards you because they won't understand what you're doing, but they'll feel receptive towards you. So again, it goes. But I mean, I never thought of that as like self hypnosis or anything like that. To me, it's about changing your state. And I
Okay.
suppose I do it on a very surface level. What you do is you teach people how to change their state on a deeper level.
Yeah, but what you're saying is exactly right, because how you show up and how you are, the person in front of you will reflect that. It's like essentially a mirror, isn't it? So if you're
Mm,
going there and you're, and this happened, I actually had a client quite recently, and her issue was she had a partner, he wasn't her husband, but they'd been together a little while, and he had an older daughter who was getting married, and she was dreading the wedding because she was like, the daughter hates me. I don't know anyone there. I'm not on the top table. It's all going to be really awkward. And had she gone in with that attitude and that not feeling good enough, essentially not feeling good enough for the family, because
mm,
everybody critiqued her, and not in a bad way, she would take it so to heart. And so if she'd have showed up there, what would have happened? She would have been
mm,
all shy. She wouldn't have spoken to anyone. She would have kind of walked in. She'd have been looked like a face of anger, or she would have been really shy, and people wouldn't have been receptive. So when we did the work, I took her into hypnosis, and how I do it, take them into a hypnotic state, regress her to 2 or 3 scenes as to why she feels this way, why she feels this way. And it goes way back to childhood, predominantly with most things I work with. Some things are later, but they tend to be, supportive things of the root cause of why. So we went back, and it went back to 2 or 3 scenes where, her parents didn't pay attention to her. They paid attention to her brother or sister. Her brother or sister always got the praise, and she was always the one who didn't feel she got the praise, or she got in trouble a bit more. And there are all these scenes which she was critiqued a lot. She didn't feel good about herself. And we reframed it. We do a lot of interruption techniques within that to get her to look at it from a different point of view. Because if you imagine when we're that age, we're kind of like little narcissists and we just think the whole world revolves around us. But when you actually start to look at it from different points of views, and then I do a lot of different techniques where you kind of upgrade her into your life now. And then we put an installation in where she was super confident. She went in there and we had a call about 3 weeks later after it, and she was like, I had the best time. She was like, the daughter loved my outfit, all of her friends. I was on this table, but everyone was so much fun. She was like, we had we laughed all night. I danced. She was like, it was the best event. And the change from how it could have been to how it was, just because of how she'd shifted about feeling about herself on that occasion. And it was just, I was like, good. I was like, I knew it would happen, but it's always lovely to have tangible results, because often with a lot of the stuff I do, if it's confidence or self-esteem, it's gradual and people just notice they change in different scenarios. But when it's a scenario she wanted to perform, she wanted it to be good, it was really lovely.
I do you know, I've got goosebumps. I love that. I love that so much because we can all imagine ourselves in that woman's place.
Yeah.
We all have our own versions of that incident, and that's brilliant. I'm so happy for her, and well done you. That's amazing. That's oh, you must love it when you get results like that, because you know that someone now is walking around in their own world and their own environment feeling better about themselves because of something you did. What a wonderful feeling.
No, and it happens like, I mean, I say I do love my job, because you get that a lot, in the sense that you just get that feeling when you've made someone's life a bit better. I do love the tangible results. So I had a lady who came to me and she had a fear of needles, but like a real severe. So it would be in front of her and she would faint or be sick. And we took her back to 2 or 3 scenes to do with that. And it was very much linked to a doctor who, because she was scared of needles, he'd taken blood and then made her carry it down a hallway. And she was kind of like, why? Obviously, when you look at it now, you're like, why on earth would, of course, that's going to
Mm.
affect her. So we kind of reframed that, looked around it, upgraded, changed it around. And she went the next week and had a tattoo with her daughter. So it wasn't even that she just could get by with that. She went and got one. And then the next time I saw her after that, she's like, I've got another one. It's like, well done you, but don't go crazy.
Wow.
We're
That
done.
So what would you say are the main things that people do come to you with? Because obviously you mentioned there it's normally things like confidence or even like a fear of needles. I can understand because that can be restrictive in some kind of way. Or is it like your client who had a specific need, that there was an event or something she was going to and she wanted to work out how to figure it out? What do people normally come to you with?
You know what? It can be anything. I mean, I work with confidence, self-esteem, success blocks. So, people who aren't getting to where they want to be, fears, phobias, eating disorders I work with, depression, relationships. So if people are going into repeating relationships that aren't quite right, I work with that a lot as well. Getting over relationships, grief, various different things. Essentially any behavior you have that you want to change, you can work with it, because a lot of, I don't know how much people know, but our subconscious mind, there's our conscious mind. So our conscious mind is our thinking mind, our, logical mind when we're thinking now and talking. Our subconscious mind is our feeling mind, it's our behaviors, our habits. But our subconscious mind drives 95% of our behavior. Our conscious mind's only 5%. So even though sometimes we know we want to go into a scenario and behave a certain way, or, we're going into a new job and we want to get to the best, if we have a block blocking us, it won't align with that. When we go into that autopilot, when we go into, when the subconscious takes the driving seat, which is 95% of the time, it will block it. And unless we can consciously, which is very difficult to consciously get to that stage where you're so conscious all the time, you are stopping yourself from behaving in that way. It's quite difficult to do. Whereas hypnosis, you can change how you feel about it. So when you go in there, you go to the root cause, or I certainly do in the type hypnosis I practice,
Mm.
cause of the why you're behaving like that, not rather than dealing with the issues. So for example, anxiety, I don't deal with the anxiety as such. I'll go to why you feel anxious, because Anxiety in particular often is a warning. It's trying to protect you. Your mind, your mind's there for one purpose, really, survival. Take you as far away from pain, as close towards pleasure. And if at some point you've told yourself something's emotionally or physically painful, or it's a danger, then when it happens again, your mind's like, okay, let's keep you away from that. How are we going to do that? Let's use your body. Let's give you sweaty palms, panic attack, that sort of thing. And it will just try and take you. And anxiety is often a warning that a behavior is not quite right. So I often go
Mm.
back, find the root cause. When you change that, you change how you feel about it. So rather than having to think, that's not that, you just organically tend to change how you feel, which is yeah.
One of the things that's so interesting, that just picking up on what you said there, and is that the whole idea of people not necessarily achieving what they want to achieve, because we
Mm.
live in a society now that is kind of rammed into us that if you haven't achieved what you want to achieve, you don't want it enough, you're not working hard enough, you're not working smart enough. But actually we don't take into account that there could be these subconscious blocks that are holding us back. We could be doing all the things that people are telling us to do. We could be going on all the courses and, you know, whatever there is out there to progress, because we either really genuinely believe in what it is that we're selling or the business that we're in, but somehow we're not getting there and we're blaming ourselves and thinking we're doing something wrong. But what I'm picking up on what you're saying there is, if that's only 5%, and then the rest of our actions actually come from the subconscious, how do you work with people who say have a success block or a money block or something that isn't as tangible as like a fear of needles or going to a wedding reception, where they're not feeling so confident? Because those are quite obvious. This isn't necessarily so.
Yeah, well, I had actually, I work with success a lot, success and money blocks, because I work with a lot of high achieving people, business leaders, CEOs who are doing very well, but they know that there's something there, kryptonite, they're not quite
Mm.
performing as they should. And I worked with a lady who was very successful, but she just couldn't there was always something blocking her. She wasn't quite getting to the stable. She'd hit a certain amount of money a month because she was, an entrepreneur, and it wouldn't go any higher. So I had a session with her and we regressed her back, because it's always about the regressing. We regressed her back and she was younger, and there was a few scenes, but the really pivotal one was she was at a house party of her parents' friends at about 7 or 8 years old. And she was in the house and she was just kind of walking around, and she was made to feel really uncomfortable, like she didn't belong there. And she couldn't exactly work out why it was, but it was something maybe her mum was saying, or like, we don't belong here, or they're these rich people are snobs, or it was something along those lines. And so her belief then, 'cause it's all about the belief you create as a young child about that, was that, rich people aren't like that, us. I don't want to be rich. That's not there's a negative connotation with it. And so we reframed it, and we reframed it very much into, I want to be successful. I want to reach my goals. Rich people aren't greedy. That was just one occasion. That's not the be all and end all. Really interrupted it, uses different techniques, and installed a hypnosis where it was, I'm going to reach my goals. And the mind always has to think in present tense, because it can't think in the future, because else it's never going to come. So we did a lot of present tense hypnotherapy in the transformation. And that weekend, she just knocked 10 grand out the bank, without anything. So another tangible one. And she was like, I got it. And she's like, I wanted to remember that memory. So she went and asked her mum, because she was like, what happened? She's like, oh yeah, they were really rich. And, don't you remember it? It was really awkward. We left early. And she was like, I hadn't remembered that. But it impacted her in a way where she felt uncomfortable around wealth. So her mind was then trying to take her away from it in a way,
Mm.
which is really
That's so fascinating, because even like you say, as children, we are understandably little narcissists, because the world does revolve around us, because we don't know any different. That we only know what we know, so it's not necessarily negative narcissism. It's just our lived experience. So we haven't broadened our minds yet, and so understandably, everything that happens around us is happening to us. So we're absorbing it, and there'll be so many people. Because I was as you were talking, naturally, I'm a narcissist. I'm thinking about me. So I was thinking about, obviously, I'm joking. I'm not a narcissist. I'm just a normal human being who was thinking about myself. But I was thinking, yeah, I suppose in my life, there's been little comments that my parents will have made that, whether it's to do with money or what have you, that yeah, subconsciously it's been sort of drip fed in, and the more I think about it, absolutely will have shaped my attitude
Mm.
towards success. My dad, he won't mind me saying, he comes from the Gorbals in Glasgow, but from back in the 40s and 50s. Left school with nothing, was an apprentice engineer, and his family, very very working class Glaswegians. My mum's family were the same. They worked in the docks.
Mm.
Very very much that was our background. And my dad actually, almost despite himself, went on to do very well, but he never quite felt comfortable with
Yeah.
it, because he never. And my dad he's almost 80 now. He'll hate me saying that bit. He won't know. But there's still a part of him that feels like he doesn't quite fit in. And, no matter, even we say, "Dad, we're really proud of you. You've worked really hard." "Oh, I don't have the qualifications. I just did it through, working up and proving myself. And, I mix with people and they have degrees. But that doesn't mean anything. You are who you are." And again, what's fascinating is, here's a man who's nearly 80 years old. He still has those blocks that are there from his childhood. Unless you do something to address them, they will never go away.
Absolutely, and it's like, because the mind likes what's familiar and rejects what's unfamiliar a lot of the time. So he obviously got to where he wanted to be, but always had that feeling of, imposter syndrome a little
Yeah.
bit, I guess. But because for example, what is familiar is safe. If you go way back to, like, historic times, you wouldn't go too far from the camp because you could die. You'd eat the same foods, drink the same drinks, because that was safe and that was for survival. And you see the same now with little kids. Like, they'll drink from the same cup, they'll watch the same cartoon over and over again. They'll do things that are familiar because it's safe. And it's when they eat the same foods and you're like, try this, and they're like, don't want that. But
Mm.
it's safety and it's survival. If you look what you were saying then about, how things are, beliefs are created. So, between the ages of 0 and 7, you're at a lower brainwave state. You're at what's called theta. So you've got your beta mind, which we're talking now, a conscious mind, which slips into alpha, which is kind of a meditative state. And then you go into theta, which is hypnosis. But it's also that lower brainwave state you're at between 0 and 7. And then below that's delta, which is sleep. But theta, that's where, that's imagination. That is a lower, your subconscious. You're literally subconscious between the ages of 0 and 7, and you're a sponge. You don't have a level of logic, so you just are taking in everything around you in your environment. So, you're taking in what your parents' beliefs are, whatever they tell you, you believe. You can't sit there and argue the logic if they're like, rich people are greedy or money doesn't grow on trees. You can't say, well, yes, it does. You can easily get money, because you can't. You're a little child in that family, within that world, and you're learning. If you think of the amount of millions of things you're having to learn, just how to fit in a family, and the environment, what's on TV, and everything that you're learning then just goes in, and you don't have the ability to kind of argue. If someone says you're the pretty one, you can't say, "Oh no, I'm not. Have you seen my hair?" I'm the pretty one. And then when you have that, you look for something to support your beliefs. So you get invited to the party that not everyone gets invited to. You're like, "Oh, it's because I'm the pretty one." And it starts to follow through in your life. So first you make your beliefs on everything: wealth, health, money, yourself, and then your beliefs make you. So then that starts to make your life. You start to see it reflected, because your external reality is a reflection of your beliefs. If you believe you can do something, you will. If you believe you can't, you won't. I think it was a famous quote I've just stolen there, but said
Yeah.
very badly.
But it's true. If you believe you can, and you believe it, and both times you're right. That is absolutely the case. Anna, if you could leave us with one thing that people could do to work on. I mean, clearly, if it is a much better idea to go and see a professional and work at a deeper level. But if there is something that we can do to work on ourselves, just at a sort of basic level, to either remove a blockage or raise our game, what is our own personal placebo that we can work with, that you can leave us with?
God, there are a couple of things, but I would say, if there are behaviors you don't like, when something happens, look at the trigger. Like, what's caused you? What has caused you? I had, like, for example, there was a couple, and she was coming for me for kind of couples therapy, and her husband, he she would ask him to empty the dishwasher. And for example, he wouldn't empty the dishwasher. She'd come home, she's like, and she would lose it. She would give a very like extreme reaction to someone not emptying a dishwasher. And when you looked into it, and she wouldn't have even needed my help, it's like, why has that affected me? And when you sit with it and you think, why am I that bothered about the dishwasher? It's because to her, that made her feel like she didn't matter, because if she mattered, he would have emptied the dishwasher. And when you sit and start to like question why something has triggered you, what could that mean about me? What do I believe about me that has affected me? When you start to do that, you can start to unpick it a little yourself and be like, okay, well, that affected me because I don't feel that I matter with him. And you can start to unpick it, and then you can start to change how you think about it. It's a little more difficult, but when you start to look at the triggers and look at why they're triggering you, then that starts to
Mm.
be quite empowering, because you can start to change it. And next time it happens, you're like, okay, I don't need to lose it over the dishwasher. And you can have the conversation where it's like, okay, look, when you don't do that, that to me means that, I don't necessarily matter to you. So can we work on this? And when you can start to do that, but it's very hard in the moment to not react. But when you start to notice it, you can start to have a bit more power over it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for today. You've given so many brilliant insights, so many useful tips, and I think that it's just all worth remembering that we all have power within us that we just don't tap into. And so often we look to fill our life with things and stuff and things that
Mm,
is going to make us feel a certain way, make us feel better or more powerful or more successful. And actually, if we tap into ourselves and we become our own placebo, if you like, it becomes the real thing. And I think you've given us a really beautiful insight to that. So thank you for that, Anna.
my pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you for today, Andrea.
I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation. Remember to like and subscribe to this channel so you never miss a thing.